about how governance is done and about how resources are spent, but poverty is increasing.
First, I gave the olive branch to those who contested for me. Unfortunately, my closest opponent was not able to live to enjoy the benefit of that government, because we all understand he was my very good friend, my childhood friend. But at the end of the day, shortly after the election, he died. Unfortunately, he died unfortunately. But the rest of those who contested with me, the first olive branch went to all of them. I said they should come and work with me, and all of them came. Most of them came, and most of them were all appointed in government. Most of them, if they were not appointed as key people in government, they were appointed as board members in government, or they also patronized in contracts. So we started with that, and that was now a team for me. So that is exactly the same spirit I'm going to extend in this administration. And what they did after winning the election, and I met my broadcast and I said, in this game, there is no victor, there is no vanquish. Plateau is the one that will benefit from it. So I also said, everybody that contested election with me should come on board, so that we can work for the people of Plateau State. And I saw reasons in that, because many of those who contested came quickly to congratulate me.
Victory in an election is not a personal thing. It's at best victory for your policies, victory for your agenda, victory for your manifesto, victory for all the promises you've made, because it comes with it a burden on your shoulder to acquit yourself and deliver. And in doing so, the minimum requirement for leadership is that you must provide a platform for everybody to participate. Therefore, you are forced to be magnanimous even in victory. It is not about your personal goal or agenda. So if you want to take your state, your local government, or the nation from one level to the other, you must be able to open your arms and accept contributions from everybody. Most importantly, some of us whose background is the sciences, we're taught in school that negative results are as important as positive results, because they mirror what you ought to do. Therefore, all those who did not agree with you push the adrenaline in the first place in you for you to win. Therefore, they are important, and then you have to take time to analyze their opinion, where they varied and why they varied, where they took the positions they took, going forward, so that you can aggregate all of this and then try to give your best. It's a very risky thing for you to think that it is a personal victory. It's not a prize, it's not a diadem, but rather it's victory for your policies, and you need everybody to come on board.
Well, it is very interesting, Jimmy, hearing from governors about being magnanimous in victory. The governor of Plateau State said, look, that he actually had to invite some of his opponents to come and be part of his government. It's a healthy development. Yeah. And one of the issues, raised in that conversation, which took place in the first quarter of the year, is actually the issue of lack of internal democracy in political parties that are functioning in Nigeria, not in all the political parties, because after primaries, shortly before election, there is no party where we didn't have conflicts here and there, misunderstandings, the campaigns, and what have you. And that goes to show that, our politicians are not, they don't think join parties based on ideologies. It is where you have a soft landing, that's where you go, where you are. In some cases, someone who failed in the primary, the next day he's announcing membership of another party, and in fact, not just announcing membership, but he will get the nod, to of course carry the contest election under that platform, and so also
forgetting the people who toiled to get to that point.
Exactly,
Comes in and takes over.
exactly. And you know, all these things play out in a country where we are yet to internalize the democracy, you know, the philosophy of democratic, principles. You know, there are basic things that we need to appreciate, before we can, say, look, that in democracy in Nigeria has come to stay. There are a lot. If you listen to those conversations, you will appreciate that. Okay, now moving forward, the menace of kidnapping for economic and political reasons was one issue that the security agencies battled with during the year ending.
And on Good Morning Nigeria, we assembled experts to offer valuable contributions on the way out of the challenge.
I am of the opinion that kidnapping has become an industry, unfortunately, in the country. The criminals go into kidnapping, they collect their money, they are able to spend that money, and unfortunately, others are seeing that, and they are also joining the fray. In criminology, you tackle criminality by doing three things. Firstly, you increase the risk, so that the would-be criminal knows that if he goes into it, he may be arrested, he will be prosecuted. The second thing you do is you increase the effort that he requires to carry out that crime. And then thirdly, which is for me the most important one, the benefit, the reward that he gets from it, you make it impossible for him to spend that reward. So the question I would ask, and for the benefit of the purpose of this discussion, is in these three things, how have we fared? Unfortunately, I've picked each and every one of them, and I've come to the conclusion that we can do better in all of them. Is it increasing the effort? Is it increasing the risk? Or is it even the reward? I don't want to put the police on the spot in this regard. If we are talking about, for instance, the reward that comes from the criminality, the ransom they collect, I think that's something the National Assembly needs to look into. What laws do we have in place to manage the collection of the reward, and then even, for instance, to give the police and other law enforcement agencies the platform to handle this matter? Technology has given us a lot of assets that we can use.
What's your take on the present situation with respect to kidnapping and banditry in the country?
Well, it's alarming and quite disturbing. The speed at which kidnap goes on in this country calls for serious concern, national concern. You recall, just like Kabir said, the aims, the objectives. We have two types of kidnap. One purely, basically economic. People who are out to collect money. Then we have political, settling political scores and others. And we ask, which one is more prevalent? You see, the one that's more prevalent now is economic. Because of the pure economic hard times, people go into crime, and we should not allow them space to operate, especially the police, which is the lead organization in terms of maintenance of internal security.
In Kaduna in particular, Kaduna-Abuja Road is a very terrible place now for commuters. Kaduna-Birnin-Gwari is also another very bad place in terms of kidnapping. They not only kidnap commuters, even security agencies who are at the point of their duties are being kidnapped and sometimes killed. Very recently, some soldiers who are at the point of their duties were killed around Birnin-Gwari forest. So it is really becoming very alarming and very disturbing. And I think what we need to do is to look at this issue holistically. We shouldn't leave it just in the hands of the military to coerce these people. There is need to bring in the society at large, the traditional rulers, the vigilante groups. Don't underestimate them. In the Northeast, the civilian JTF has made significant contributions in the fight against the Boko Haram. Here too, if they are encouraged, I'm sure they'll go a long way in helping to find solutions.
So one of the major issues or the areas that needs to be tackled are the Kamuku Forest in Birnungwaru local government, which is in Kaduna State, the Falgore Forest in Kano State, though in the last 4 months or thereabout, the military have done a very excellent job in that. So Falgore Forest is to some extent a little safe now. Then we have the Dansado Forest, and of course the Dajun Rugu Forest, which stretches through Kaduna, Katsina, Zamfara states, and of course extended into the fringes of Niger Republic. So these are the areas where these hoodlums are using as their cover or hideouts in order to continue their illegal harvest of killing or abducting people for ransom and so on.
The punishment for all these, for bearing weapons, are they deterrent enough? And the answer is no. That is why we have to bring in even the legislation. But unfortunately, they are politicians, and some of the bearers of the weapons are regarded as political talks. So the last discussion I had in NTA, I said the media has to come in if we have to blackmail the legislators into upgrading all these laws, some of these laws that has to tackle criminality. We just have to do it, because if punishments are not deterrent, it gives people encouragement to continue to commit crimes. And unfortunately, unlawful possession of firearms that under the criminal code has just a fine of 14 naira, ridiculous, is one of them, and is the major bane of this country's criminal situation, because for as long as we continue to have weapons in the hands of people who are not lawfully empowered, it gives encouragement to people to commit crime and make people who wants to live their normal life to be intimidated. So we need to bring in the legislators to assist us in tackling, making this unlawful possession of firearms deterrent.
Well, Jimmy, at a point in time, Kaduna-Abuja Road, became a nightmare for commuters. But Nigerians are happy that that has drastically reduced. But we're also hearing about other kidnapping in parts of the country.
Just
we
like
just
we
read one.
in the paper,
Yes, it is still there. But
ex-wife, daughter, and driver.
But I'm interested in what the police officer just said, in that clip, that the laws to tackle criminality are not strong enough.
No, they're not.
And it is working against the police. And he was even talking about for Nigerians to rise, to see how we can blackmail the National Assembly, to make laws, or even amend some of these laws, especially laws that have to do with the criminal code, laws that have to do with the commensurate punishment for arms bearing, for instance. Right, and one of the reasons, if you ask me, that led to the drastic reduction in the spate of kidnapping in Nigeria, could be the partial closure of the border. Which is where the bandits get access to small arms.
Yes.
All right, and we are moving forward on this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. Of course, as we told you earlier, we are doing a review of some of the very topical issues that we have raised on this program, and of course discussed on this program in the course of 2019. We're trying to touch on some very important ones. Yes. I will do same tomorrow. Okay, provision of infrastructure is one of the cardinal principles of the Buhari administration.
Kieran, rail development is among the sectors that the federal government is making inroad in, and hence the discussion on the rail transportation milestone and prospects.
Are we just scratching at the tip of this modernization or do we have, a broader vision?
The vision has always been there, but I smiled because when you talk about if we was crashing on the thing and not finding the solution is to provide tracks and provide coaches and locomotives. That we have done. The problem is that you've not provided enough to match the current upsurge. And let me tell you why I think that surge will reduce. There are men who to address, let me take it this way. To address transportation to Kaduna or to Abuja, you must provide for intermodal process. Intermodality means that you have to provide for buses or taxis that will pick people at the point at Rigasa or at Idu or at Kubwa. Now, if you add the cost of those transportation to the cost of railway, it may possibly be higher than taking transport from Kaduna straight to Abuja. It may. So there are people who say, oh no, I can't bear that cost, despite the comfort, despite the air-conditioned atmosphere, the restaurant or whatever this thing you find in the railway, and we begin to increase the speed from 90 to 120. At 120, we expect that should be in Kaduna an hour plus. Now, despite all those comfort, there are those who say, if it's safe and I drive my car, it is shorter and quicker to get to where I'm going to than picking a train. Those people will be out of rail. The people who will be out of rail will be those who will look at the cost and say to them, I have other, maybe my car will be parked at the station and to pick me at the station and all that. And what we have to do is government is subsidizing rail. So what we have to do is make it affordable for the poor to use. Currently, the rich, the wealthy, and the poor are using it.
There are managerial issues here in terms of management of passenger traffic, particularly the ticket racketeering. What exactly has been wrong? Is it just lax supervision or otherwise?
If you look back, as the minister said, the volume of people coming to the station have gone up. And if you also cross-check, the people arrested, I think only 2 were railway staff. You see, we have made it a way that before you buy your ticket, you must come with an ID, not necessarily passport or driver's license, but something to at least identify yourself. And we'll make sure at the back of your ticket is written the number of the ID card, and we have manifest. That allows you to enter the waiting room. So, and when the train is ready to go, about 15 minutes to, you now start boarding people, and you must show your ID card to match the ID card number on the back of your ticket must match with the ticket. But sometimes you have people come in, say we are family, and only one of them, maybe say 4 or 3 children. It's okay. You put their numbers on the 3 tickets. That is the parent ID card. Those are the tickets they go back and sell. So when the FCC came, they are doing their work and they arrested people. Most of them, the staff arrested are not even on the ticket desk. One is on health and safety, and one is not even supposed to be at the station. And a policeman that's supposed to be protecting the people selling the tickets were those picked. Yes. So that's, I'm just bringing it out so that you understand how the ticket is being sold presently. But we'll be making effort to ensure even your ATM can use it as it's done abroad. That's what the system we are profiling and we have been working on. That's now with ICROC. So that you don't need to even meet somebody, no contact. But we should have to have that system, the infrastructure in place for that to function. So we have to get it right. As you see, when demand is more than the supply, there's always going to be pressure. And in most cases, especially Abuja, Kaduna is a very sensitive. That's what we told our staff, and they have to make sure they do the right thing. If you tell me you are going to Abuja, you call me, I want to go to Abuja, please, I will be going so time, please help to get ticket. Will I tell you no?
Well,
That's reservation.
is that, yeah, that's a
That's
reservation.
reservation.
You not
You
purchase a
reserve,
ticket.
okay, you reserve, somebody will give it to you. Is that correct?
No, the way it's done, you make a reservation booking, and when you go there and present your details, it's confirmed, you pay, and you collect.
But when you come and pay, and somebody else was on the queue, because I've reserved for you, and when you come, you pay and give you tickets, it's racketeering. Because somebody was there at the station waiting.
No, but MD, are you denying the fact that ticket racketeering is going on in Idu?
You see, there are ways, racketeering, there are no fake tickets. Do you agree with that? Because our tickets are secured, very secured.
So the tickets are hoarded, or the tickets are purchased allegedly by some of your staff in collusion with others.
And so that
they hoard them so that near the time of departure, they start hacking up
who is patronizing those people?
Passengers.
So it's not a one-way thing. I'm not defending them. What I'm trying to say is that Nigerians should learn how to do the right thing.
Railway, as it is not meant for passengers. The primary provision of railway infrastructure is to move goods, services, and products. Okay, the one where you now say, okay, maybe you now complement intercity travels by having passengers, use them, you now have coaches. The other one, you just use rolling stocks and the locomotive. This one, the locomotive and the coaches. Now, when there is scarcity, we are human beings. Anything can happen. And you find a situation whereby if things continue like this, in the next 1 week, you say they are standing, people will be staying on the roof. If you go to Lagos between 6:30 and 8, you'll see people on the roof. Because you see, for railway, it's not like an aircraft, okay? Whatever load you put on it, it will take. Because the issue is that it needs weight. That's why coaches and they are very massive in steel, so that they can make appropriate contact with the rail to roll. Because if the weight is not enough, it will slide. Because they have to continue to overcome the friction. Now, so the issue of passenger safety is what really you are talking about. That it's not good for them to be standing. And rail is not like a bus. You can't be having it every 5 minutes. Of course, that's the reason why we need metro lines. Because metro lines, they operate on the basis of railway system.
Yes, the ticket racketeering, trust some unscrupulous Nigerians, they always find a way to do some shoddy deals at every given opportunity.
And it has been happening in the recent months. People go to Idu to get ticket, they don't get it, and they say even the people even sit down on the floor of the train to get to Kaduna.
Well, it's also good to recall the fact that previous administrations made efforts to bring back our rail lines, but those efforts did not yield the expected fruit, and so the present administration should be commended, for the level we have gotten to respect to rail transportation. It is working everywhere. Of course, like you said, if you have to travel to Kaduna, you have to book a week before your travel date. Otherwise, you'll have issues, getting a space for yourself.
But even said, even if you reserve and you come to the line and somebody has been there before you, it's racketeering.
Exactly, that's what I was saying. But the good thing is that the rail is in place for now, and of course in 2020 we're expecting some inauguration of other maybe Warri.
Yes, I think 8 coaches will be attached to the Kaduna Abuja Railway, and then we have Ibadan, Lagos, which is free now, operating free for people and making it easy to travel during the Yuletide. I think I still remember with nostalgia escorting my mom in Maiduguri when she's going to Gombe, to see her relatives. Then early in the morning, they're on the train, they get there the next morning. I think it's the answer to the common man's way of travel.
Exactly.
It's affordable for them.
Exactly, and it's a jolly good ride when you're on a train. It's a jolly good ride, seeing the hinterland. Okay, as we move on, in view of the security challenges facing the country, the federal government opted for the community policing strategy to address the issue holistically with the people as the drivers.
This prompted the discussion on community policing to espouse the modus operandi of the policy.
What is community policing?
Thank you very much. Community policing, as the notion sounds, is basically policing in partnership with communities. In other words, it should be community-driven security strategy to identify security problems within a community in order to resolve it, working together with the communities. Of course, we all know the notion of democracy. We've been practicing democracy in this country for about 20 years now. So the popular definition of democracy is government of the people, for the people, by the people. In my own opinion, community policing simply means community policing for the people, by the people, and of the people. In other words, it is grassroots policy.
Okay.
Is that self-help?
Not self-help.
Okay.
Community in partnership, consultation, and interdependence with the community. Police as an institution working together with the community to identify security problems in the community and then resolving them.
The attempt to introduce community policing as a model for tackling crime and other security challenges in the country has not worked efficiently in Nigeria from 2004 till date. I think it's instructive to also mention that President Buhari has given, I would say, the political leadership for the commencement of community policing. We know that he started by instructing the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies to come up with a research paper, if I remember well, course 40 of 2018. And that document they presented to him served as the starting point for the directive he gave the acting Inspector General of Police. And the police is working closely with the Office of the National Security Advisor and the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Just last week or early this week, a committee has been set up by the Secretary to Government of the Federation to work on the framework for establishing community policing. So lessons have been learned from the 7 model states.
One of the challenges we have in the country is that we do not learn from each other. So there is a sense that organizations that are not part of government do not have anything to offer government. And the pilot for community policing in the country has been basically championed by development partners, particularly the UK government, working closely with some civil society groups in the country. There have been studies looking at the gaps and identifying lessons to be learned so that it's fed back into a process. And what I see, having been part of the process since inception, is that we always tend to want to start all over again. We do not policy, and there's no continuity in leadership in the country. So what were the issues identified? I'll first start with access to justice. When access to justice came on board from '99, access to justice launched community policing in the country. And access to justice was implemented, I think, in about 6 states, 1 state in each geopolitical zone. A lot of research, background work, training of police, and the concentration was on the Nigeria police force, without taking cognizance of a mapping of the public safety security environment to determine who are the stakeholders within the public safety security environment. The police is just one of such stakeholders. The Police Community Relations Committee is not a setup of, is not an outcome of the launch of community policing. The PCRC had been there for years, and the platform for PCRC at that time was to serve as a bridge between the community and the police. However, it became elitist and it is membership driven. So the average man on the street who is not a member of PCRC does not have access to the PCRC. Then you could also say, if you look at the way PCRC is run, PCRC mainly became like a fundraising pattern for physical support. So there are gaps in the police that they identify. They don't have enough resources as per fuel. They help to provide fuel. There's need for computers. They help to provide computers. So these are hardcore kind of engagements. But then you ask, when you're talking about policing issues that affect the average man on the street, then you're supposed to be looking at a scenario where there should be a platform for engagement that normal people, the woman selling abacha on the street, should have access to that platform. It's not supposed, if it's properly organized, membership would be fluid. You might have a leadership structure so that it's coordinated and organized. However, membership will be fluid based on issues being discussed. Because once my own issues are sorted out, most likely I might not come for the next meeting.
We must understand that community policing, the CP rightly said, that is proactive. And he said before we are traditional. It is not either or. It is not either community policing or traditional policing. What happens is, in community policing, there is the preventive aspect, and the other one, there is reactive. For effective policing, you need both parts. You need to integrate them together. Arrest will not stop under community policing. Investigation will not stop. Intelligence gathering will not stop. But on the contrary, I think the key to community policing is the fact that there's a disaggregation of concern. What is of concern to somebody who lives in Jos in terms of insecurity may not be the same as the person in Enugu and in Lagos. And as Kemi mentioned, there will be devolution of power in such a way that the Commissioner of Police in Jos can define what constitutes threat to security in Plateau State, not necessarily by the IG. All he needs to do is to say, this is what is happening in my domain. This is the plans that I have for countering it, and he sees the endorsement of the IG, rather than IG calling them to Abuja and say, go back to your state and do the following. And how do you then know what are the security concerns in Plateau? It means that the police and the community must sit together and say, what are our security concerns? That means we are observing in this place new development of behavior among youth, among men. What do we need to do before this problem become a major issue that we are not able to address? And they come about solution. To it collectively, and I think it's the collective, the partnership between the police and the community that is a bedrock of community policing, followed by the fact that there is a devolution of power, that even on the beat, a police officer has more discretion to act than is the case now. In terms of structure, of course, there are all kinds of variation. And in the last 3 decades that it's been effectively used or adopted across the countries, there have been a lot of modification. So there isn't one packet of community policing. It's dynamic, and society must respond to the philosophy of community policing partnership. That is essentially the underlying principle of community policing.
All right, that's it on community policing, which we discussed in the course of 2019. And of course, it is believed that with time, Nigeria will come to terms with the reality of community policing. And that's, of course,
much needed solution to what's happening in the hinterland. You know, I keep saying that when you send somebody to a place where he does not understand the language, he does not understand the terrain of, definitely you wouldn't know what is happening. But when it's somebody that's from that area, he has grown up there, he knows everybody who is a criminal.
Exactly, and that's also the reason why some Nigerians were, as it were, calling for state police as well. Yes. All right, this is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We are reviewing our program in the year 2019. For now, let's take a short break. When we come back, we will continue with the review.
What we are really cultivating here is a better future for all Nigerian women, and it's not always easy. Panadol Extra relieves headache, backache, joint pain, toothache, and menstrual pain. The pain is worth it.
My name is Balaunti. I'm the Managing Director of Petroleum Product Marketing Company, a subsidiary of NNPC. There are significant price discrepancy between Nigeria and its neighbors across Africa. There's a discrepancy of between 150 to 250 naira. That creates an incentive for arbitrage, whereby smuggling triumphed by taking petroleum products across the neighbors so that they can be sold at higher price. While the smugglers are making the money, Nigeria is paying for it. And that payment is distorting everything that we do in terms of planning, in terms of our ability to fund, and thereby taking money that is meant for development. The introduction of this Operation White will have a reduction of close to 6 million liters on daily basis, which if you take an average of 150, translate to a saving of over 1 billion naira every day. That is the benefit of Operation White, and we have started seeing the great benefit.
Don't you people sell imported materials here? As beautiful as the shop is.
Auntie, buying foreign goods does not help our economy. Neither does it boost local production. And the good thing is Nigerian-made products are high quality. Really? And to make Nigeria great again. That is why I only sell made in Nigeria products. Because change begins with me.
I'm convinced. Change begins with me too. Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Well, we are still talking politics, but this time around is June 12th. I believe those who are above 30 years can remember the struggle for the actualization of June 12th.
You know, exactly. I hope they will remember, although such struggle didn't materialize, so to speak, but President Buhari made history by recognizing those behind the struggle.
Above all, he changed the Democracy Day from May 29 to June 12, which will be effective from the year 2020. Good Morning Nigeria assembled some of the key players in the June 12 mandate in a discussion titled June 12 and Nigeria's Democracy.
Beginning with Professor Tony Radio. Well, thank you, Kingsley. I think that when you say my own memory, what I will always think about is what I went through as an actor in the business. And not many people remember that I was the person who was stopped from continuing to display the results at a time when it became very clear that the winner was clear and known. I didn't understand why we had to stop that process, but a couple of hours later, I was able to see that what I would call anti-democratic forces had had their day, and they had succeeded in convincing the powers that be to stop the process. The pain really is that stopping the process was not just a new thing at that point. Effort had been made before the election itself was conducted, when in the middle of the night, some few hours to the election, we got a court injunction stopping us from conducting the election. In breach of the law at that time, which said no court can stop the electoral body from doing its job. We were surprised that that judgment came. But almost immediately, the government of the day prompted us to go ahead and do the election, which gave an impression that the government had no hand in the judgment. And then we went ahead and did the election. At the end of it, another court now gave a ruling that we should stop. And we felt, again, we were going to have the support of government. This time around, the government turned around and said, go and obey the law. And we were surprised. Why should we be obeying the law the second time when we didn't obey the first one? As a matter of fact, the Chief Judge of Abuja, who gave the second judgment, issued a bench warrant to arrest Professor Humphrey Mosu, chairman of the commission, and his key officials if we didn't stop. In fact, the judiciary took it that we were in contempt of court to have gone ahead to conduct the election after a court had stopped us. And all efforts to draw attention to cases with similar facts, which had been ruled differently, fell on deaf ears. Nobody wanted to hear anything. And the process continued. We felt that we shouldn't just keep quiet, but if 2 days or so after, the commission was suspended, and they couldn't even come to work anymore. But then we had lodged a complaint at the Court of Appeal in Kaduna. In that court, we were sure we were going to win because all the facts were there. The affidavit attached to our motion actually displayed the results of the election. And on that day of judgment, the federal government annulled the election, thereby leaving the judiciary to act in vain. So it became very clear that it was a government thing. And all the pretensions about, oh, we are not in this or we are not in that, didn't work. Some of us, as a journalist, I wanted to know what was happening. I made some efforts. And some of the bylines I heard, one of them was that the army didn't want Abiola, and that's why they cannot allow it. So I told them, but Abiola won in all the polling booths in the army barracks. So which army didn't want him? So June 12 for me is a ridicule. It's a riddle that is difficult to resolve.
June 12 really, because of course I was a correspondent for The Guardian covering politics and especially details to take care of the election, you know. He was a spokesman of NEC then, and I do remember very clearly that NEC then was at the present venue, present office of AMAC, you know, and the election was coming against the background of several policy rigmarole. We had had processes changed and unchanged. We had had politicians banned, unbanned, banned, and banned again. Programs have been shifted, dates have been shifted severally. So the expectation was really very high that on this one location we were going to have this election, that this election was going to hold. You know, it was very difficult, almost unimaginable to anticipate, to expect that the election was going to be cancelled again. It's a particular day that I hate to remember in the history of this country. And the other date I hate to remember as a growing up professional is the day that Kenule Benson Sarua was assassinated, was killed. But June 12 particularly, I remember as a growing up professional, you know, was one moment that challenged the average hope of a young man in the history of this country. Because we had invested our hope, we had labored all through the process, you know, trying to cover an election that would deliver democracy finally, having waited for years from 1983, you know, up to 1993, you know, thereabout. And it was a rude shock, so to say, when we were looking at the board on that Olusegun Obasanjo way. You know, we're looking at the board very clearly. The results were coming out. After the results were already announced across the states of the Federation. But we wanted it official. We're expecting the official one. And we're not supposed to report any other one apart from the official one that he was releasing. You know, and the board was coming out. We're looking at the board, counting it. You know, the nation was becoming celebratory because it was very easy at that time to predict who the winner was going to be. Then suddenly we saw movement. Humphrey Wosu went out, came back again. Another movement will come, you know, and we're sitting on the walls of the roads, you know, and we started getting concerned. You know, we're looking at ourselves. I remember Simon Massey, who is now in the nation, many very prominent journalists, you know, he raised an argument and said, it is not possible, nothing can happen to this election. You know, nothing can happen to this election, you know. Hopes were very high because it was almost like the sinking of the Titanic. Something you think would never happen, happening. Okay. You know, then suddenly, after the movement, we saw soldiers coming back and forth. Then we started looking at ourselves again, and, you know, the deed was going to be done. The evil deed was going to be done. You know, the election was postponed. Then, within the space of 2-3 days, about 4 reasons were given, you know, for the annulment, for the stoppage of the results of the election. 4 reasons. One, judicial anarchy. Second, insecurity. Then there was a third and a fourth again. So because of these multiple reasons, we just knew that something was fishy. And they will have the problems in our hands.
I don't know. Before you congratulate the president for having the foresight and the kind-heartedness in trying to rekindle the spirit of June 12. But this singular aspiration, I strongly believe it was in the best interest of Nigeria and Nigerians and also the unity of this country. Let me also tender my condolences once again to the family of Abiola, the president that never was. Because Abiola, as far as I'm concerned, still lives. With this rekindling of June 12 aspiration, Abiola is still alive. Having said that, I was the regional editor of the Week magazine in Yola. When the June 12 movement started, you could see the vitality and vigor in terms of aspiration, in terms of political movements, and in terms of robust approach to the entire campaign structure. The DG then, Dr. Senator Silas Zungina, had a kind of robust engagement. The campaign structure was so formidable that you should listen to even the jingles. It was so motivating. Here we had an aspirant that was very exciting. His engagement with the Nigerian people was very robust. Abiola was one person that went into the field with a mission and vision. He was one person that was a bridge builder, a grassroots mobilizer, a charitable philanthropist, and also a philanthropist and also a charitable industrialist. And by virtue of his deep pockets and the fact that he has touched so many lives, he became a Nigerian product. Abiola's political structure was so formidable that at that point in time, honestly, by the time, especially in the Northeast, the aggregation of opinion, when I saw the engagement of the structures, we were so comfortable that as even reporters, that the SDP was carrying the day. If you go to the fields, especially on the day of the election, I could recall with great nostalgia that people were so enamored by what Abiola represented. That's why June 12 today still remains a watershed in Nigerian history, in the sense that it defied the, that kind of feeling of people who are not, people who are generally tired with the military as at that point in time. And therefore, with the coming of Abiola, he changed the face and character of governance, and he changed the face and character of politics.
Bring lasting memory of June 12. I don't want to ask what you were doing on June 12, 1993, but
I was quite young, so June 12 has been a key component of my life. Growing up, getting people, everybody was talking about it. In school, everybody was talking about it. My friends, parents, everywhere, at home, on TV, it was constantly being discussed. And I'm actually very happy that June 12 is now recognized as the Democracy Day officially, because it's a signal that we're not willing to forget our history. It was a watershed moment. It literally shaped our democracy as we have it now. June 12 is the reason why we have a democracy at this moment, and it's good to know that we honor people who make sacrifices for this country. As a child, I often wondered, sorry, I stammer. So as a child, yes, I did. So as a child, I often wondered why it all had to happen. But then as I grew older, for me, it's a thing of pride to know that my father stood up for what he believed in, that he was such a force, that millions of people around the country, believed in the message that he had, the message of hope that things could be better. And his story was also very inspiring. So that's a huge inspiration, not just for those of us in the family, but a lot of people across the country. It's been very overwhelming just sitting here and listening to my daddies and my uncles, talk about those events. It's hearing from them, at least in person, is it's a kind of feeling that I can't really describe, because this is something that means a lot to the older generation and is also now impacting this new generation.
Come is our despondency and our refusal to have a free mind, to have an open heart, to accept the greatness of other people. I think that's number one. Secondly, we need to recognize the difference between Democracy Day celebration and democracy. A celebration is just one day. Democracy is forever. And what is democracy? It's not the thing, a lot of people do definitions. For me, the best way to understand democracy is to break it down to its features. What are the features of democracy? For me, there are like about 5. One is sovereignty of the people. Second one is the rule of law. Third one is elections, that must be free and fair. Fourth one, majority rule. And last, protection of minority rights. Now, can we do these things in Nigeria? Have we been doing them? Do we have the sovereignty of the people? The sovereignty of the people means that everything done is done on behalf of the people, is done with their consent. Can we say today that our leaders are doing things with our consent? Is it your consent, for example, that those of us who have worked for 35 years, we retire, we are given a fraction of our salary, and it doesn't come regularly? And then a governor whose longest term in office is 8 years takes 300% of his annual salary for life. Is that our consent? Are we doing that for the people? Or we're doing for the leaders? So these are the kinds of things I think we need to look. Now, the rule of law. The rule of law talks about equality of all citizens. Nobody shall be above the law. Everybody shall be treated equally. Does that happen? If it doesn't happen, what is responsible for it? Do we have free and fair elections? I am not saying that there has been no improvement. As a matter of fact, I was one of the very first to write articles in favor of the present chairman of INEC, who stood his grounds over Zamfara, which shows that some people are really standing to their job. But you see, it is not strong men that we need in INEC. Or rather, it's not only strong men that we need. We need the strong institutions. We need a process that is virtually, free to do the work properly. Otherwise, we begin to have some of these things. And who are the people we should be talking to? We should be talking to the Clares and the Kingsley Osadolo, who are still in active service, because the media has a major role to play in ensuring that democracy is strengthened in Nigeria. And the media does not appear to be on top of that because of so many reasons which we can see. So if we can do some of those things, you find that is one group. Then we have the judiciary. With due respect, there are very many good judges. But today, except your case gets to the Supreme Court, you can't be too sure that you'll get the correct judgment.
Kieran, June 12th was a defining moment in the annals of Nigeria's history.
Exactly, and the annulment of that election was a complete disservice to this nation. But it's interesting too that the current administration, in fact the current president of the country, had to rekindle that, and establish it in the annals of democracy in Nigeria. Now, 2020. By June 12th, that's when we're going to be celebrating Democracy Day. And it's indeed good listening to some key players during the June 12th saga. The daughter of Abiola was there. And of course, the former DG of NTA, Professor Tony Iradia, who was the spokesperson of the then NEC. And of course, the journalists who actually covered that election, who were there live. So for some of us who were already adults, during that election, we can remember vividly what actually transpired. What is uppermost in my mind now is remembering the jingle of that area.
Beautiful jingles there.
On the march again, looking for Mr. President, MKO, he's our man. It's just so beautiful. I have not had that kind of jingle in recent times.
And I love the way the daughter was able to meet people who were there on ground, and you could see that she was emotional about it. I'm sure she was a child when this happened, but because of the way people kept history, she was able to hear firsthand what went down.
And she made that comment there that she's happy that it's been carried to another generation.
Yes.
All right, let's take sports now as we are about to round off this edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
And no play, they say, makes Jack a dull boy. And though the nature of what they do could be physically demanding, it did not deter these sports stars from catching a feel of the Yuletide season. Here's how some of your favorite football stars celebrated the Christmas season.